Hey everybody, Grill Father Johnny Al here, and today I'm going to smoke you a beer can chicken that you can't refuse, and one of my yard runner buddies here is going to help us out. But I better not say that too loud, they might run away. Stay tuned, I'll see you back at Texas North.
We are live from my backyard where I am smoking these meat like a brisket. I'm making meat now. Someone asked me, do I smoke meat? That's gonna be delicious. Yeah, if I smoke meat, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining today. We're talking about beer can chicken. It's also called beer butt chicken or dancing chicken, chicken on a throne. Those are some other names for it. Most commonly, it's called beer can chicken, and it burst onto the scene in the mid-90s in the Louisiana region. It's basically a whole chicken that is placed vertically on a stand and smoked. And the result is a very moist and juicy and tender and evenly cooked chicken. In short, it's an unusual sight and quite the spectacle to see for people who've never experienced a beer can chicken before. But I'd like to talk about the science that's involved here because there's a bit of controversy when it comes to the beer can chicken. And the philosophy is that you put an open can of beer up the cavity of the bird, and the beer will steam the cavity and somehow infuse flavor and extra moisture into the meat. Well, the science really doesn't prove that out. First of all, the boiling point for pure alcohol is 173 degrees Fahrenheit. And as you know, the boiling point for water is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So for beer, that boiling point is going to be somewhere between those two temperatures. And when you're cooking the chicken in a beer can chicken, the beer is not going to get hot enough to boil and steam and produce enough vapor to influence the flavor and the moisture. Now, all of this is up for debate, but I like to side with the science, but everyone is welcome to believe what they want to. And the other thing is that people don't necessarily use beer. You can use cola, like Dr. Pepper, for example. For me, I don't use either. So essentially, it's a beer can-less chicken, but I get the same results. So let's go inside and see what I mean. This is the star of today's show. This is a 6.3 pound whole chicken. I'm going to get it out of its packaging and pat dry it here in just a moment. It's very critical that you pat dry the chicken before moving on to any other preparation. Now, I wanted to tell you that I'm not really concerned about getting moist and juicy and tender chicken. I'm pretty confident that's going to happen just by the nature of doing a beer can chicken. What I am concerned about is getting a great skin. And I don't know about you, but my favorite part of chicken and turkey is the skin. So you have to be deliberate and take care to get the skin right. If you don't, then you're going to end up with mushy and rubbery skin. And here are some examples. The skin really did not turn out good at all, for at least in my opinion. And for me to bite into, take a bite or get my fork out, the food has to have at least a little bit of curb appeal to it. So the skin is very important. What's the key to getting great skin? It's two-part. First of all, you want to put together a mixture of 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt. Mix those up. The other key to getting great skin is we're going to smoke this at a higher temperature point, 350 degrees. That's going to help with getting that nice skin. But we'll worry about the smoking part later on. Let me get this out of the packaging and dry it up. We'll move on then to the next part of the preparation. I have the bird all pat dried, and I have the kosher salt and baking powder mixture all mixed up, and that's ready to go. So the first thing I want to do is put a light binder on here. The binder I use is duck fat. You can get this online. You can even get it in your grocery store. Some people use olive oil and other different things. I like to use duck fat. So I'm just going to spray this up, spray the skin up. I'm not worried too much about the inside of the meat, the cavity of the meat. Now, I have the mixture of the 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1 tablespoon of kosher salt mixed up. I put it in a little shaker just to make it easier to apply. I want to put a nice even coat on the skin the whole way around. And make sure you get underneath those wings too. Pat that in. Flip it over. Get the breast side and the legs. This will really help with the skin getting firmed up and a nice crisp texture to it when we're all done. That's good there. Next thing I'm going to do is put on my all-purpose rub. This already has salt, but this does not, so I'm not doubling up on the salt. This is my homemade low sodium, so there's no sodium in this. This is just going to help add really to the flavor profile of the chicken, as well as give it some color. So I'm going to be generous with applying this rub. Get underneath here too. Get its back. The cavity, let's get down in there too, and on the bottom side here, get some rub in there as well. Even though there's nothing in there to eat, we're looking just to add flavor to the final product. Now, in terms of the stand that I'm going to use, I started out with a stand like this, the metal stand. The problem I was having with this was when I go to put the bird on it and I put it in my pit boss, when I go to shut the lid, the cover, it was rubbing up against the top of the chicken. So I went away from this type. This is kind of a legacy model of a beer can chicken stand. Went away from that. And what I use is this smaller porcelain version. And you can see the difference in size between these two, and that the bird sitting on this is going to be much higher than when it sits on this. So I don't use that anymore, and I use the ceramic version now. So I'm going to spray this up with some Pam, just so that when I take the chicken off, it will come off a little bit easier and won't stick. Pam stands for Product of Arthur Meyerhoff. But enough of Cliff Clavin useless facts for the day. Now I'm just going to put the bird, set the bird right on top. And that's how it's going to cook. What I'll do is, now you can see some of this rub has come off. In a moment, I'm going to apply more, but I'm also going to use this pan essentially as a drip pan, and it's going to cook essentially like this. So this is what it's going to look like tomorrow when we put it on the smoker. This is going to sit overnight, uncovered in the refrigerator, let that rub kind of work its way in and help with the flavor. And then tomorrow we will get going on putting this on the smoker. It's the next day now. The bird rested overnight in the refrigerator. It's a beautiful day here at Texas North. We'll get the bird out there in the smoker in just a minute, but I want to cover a couple of things that I normally do in my other videos. And the first is what I call the 4 T's for successful barbecuing. taste, tenderness, texture, and the most important of all, the T of technique. If you don't get the technique down and correct, then the taste, the tenderness, and the texture, one or all of those is going to suffer in the end because you didn't do the technique correctly. You may ask, what about the T of temperature? And while temperature is important, not only the temperature that we cook at inside of the chamber, the ambient temperature outside, as well as the internal temperature of the meat. Those are all important, but I consider those all part of the technique. So temperature rolls up under the T of technique. You may also be wondering about the T of time, and I don't worry about time. I cook to temperature and not time. Whatever it takes, whatever amount of time it takes to cook is the time that it takes to cook. So I don't worry about temperature and time so much. They both kind of roll up under the T of technique. The second thing that I want to share with you that's critically important, especially if you're new to barbecuing, is what I call the Texas North Barbecue and Griddle Cook Log. This is basically a cook management tool. And within this 3-ring binder, I have a cook log for all of the different meats that I cook. And every time I do a cook, I fill out this sheet. What this does is help me stay on track and keep focused and helps me monitor things throughout the cook. We'll take a closer look at this in just a moment. When I'm done with the cook, I file this away so that the next time that I smoke a beer can chicken, I can go back and see the steps that I took to facilitate the cook and not have to remember everything that I did on this particular day. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at today's cook log sheet. Here's a close-up of our game plan for today. On the left here, you can see I have several major categories with some smaller categories underneath those. The pre-cook categories, we'll go over those in just a moment. The in-cook categories, and I also call this the M&M stage, which stands for managing and monitoring. And then we have the post-cook, where we record the rest times, what the weather conditions were for the day, and any comments that I can use the next time around. So we're using the Pit Boss smoker, the beercan list chicken. The whole chicken was 6.3 pounds. I purchased from Kroger. It was fresh. We have the all-purpose and baking powder kosher salt rub-on. We use the duck fat binder, and we're going with post oak for the wood today. Looking to smoke this at 350 degrees. Remember, we're going to go at a higher temperature in order to obtain that nice crispy skin. And our internal temperature that we're aiming for is 165 degrees. We'll also be spritzing with butter. That's going to give us a nice golden tint to the skin and help with the crispiness as well. We'll probably be resting the meat for about 15 minutes, and then again, I'll record the weather conditions and any other comments that I can use the next time around. So let's go out and get this bird on the smoker. The smoker is up to temperature, so the last thing we need to do before we put the meat on is to get our smoker box fired up. And this is the smoker box here. This is a Diamond King smoker. It's a 6-inch by 12-inch size. It comes in a 6x6 as well. This is a game changer when it comes to pellet grills. This smoke box is going to give you stick burner, offset smoker type quality of smoke. And the way it works is you have this stainless steel smoker box. Inside I have an airflow cage with some fire starters. Then I have some lump charcoal in there. I'm going to fire this up. And we're going to let this lump charcoal ignite. Let it ash over just a little bit. Then we're going to come back and we're going to put our post oak mini split on. So we'll give this just a few minutes. Nice fire is going now. The lump charcoal is ashing over. So let's go ahead and put on our post oak mini split. And I get these at Woodchuck Firewood. Andy is the person that runs that company, and he can get you any kind of wood. I just like to use the post oak. You can see I have a nice mini split here. We'll go ahead and put this on, let it catch. I'm just going to give it a little jump start with the torch here as well. And I promise you, when this goes into the smoker, you're going to see some beautiful post oak smoke generating. Again, this is a game changer for pellet grills. I highly recommend you spend the $50 to get yourself a smoker box. It does take up a little bit of room, but if you're only smoking one meat at a time, which is what I do, then it's not a big deal. So let's go ahead and let this catch, and then we'll get over to the smoker. The bird's now in the smoker. You'll notice that I changed out the pan. The other pan was a little too small, so I put the bird into a regular size pie pan. The post oak is starting to generate some nice smoke, which will add to the flavor profile of the bird. So we'll be in the manage and monitor stage, which I like to call the M&M stage, and keep an eye on things, and we'll do a butter spritz later on. We're 1 hour into the cook, and the skin is turning a nice golden color. So I'm going to start basting with some spray butter, and that will just help continue to make that skin nice, crispy, and give it some flavor. So I'm going to spritz it on all sides, and probably we'll just turn it to the side here so it gets some even smoke penetration and even color. We'll just continue to monitor and manage and check in a little bit later. We're at about 115 degrees internal temperature right now. My probes just went off telling me we reached 165 degrees internal temperature. I'm pretty happy with the crispiness and the color, the golden color of the skin. So I'm going to pull this off and let it rest for about 15 to 20 minutes. So the bird has rested. Let's go ahead and take this tent foil off. Now we will gently lift the bird off of its stand. Came off very nicely. I think the PAM helped with that. You can see that this is very hot still. I'll move this out of the way. A lot of juice is collected in there. Now we're going to go ahead and get to carving this up. And this is actually a fairly large sized bird. We're going to take the legs and thighs off first, then the wings, and then we'll take the breasts off last. So I'm going to take up, this is a knife that I use for carving. It's a Christmas gift from my brother-in-law, Brent. Shout out to Brent and Julia. Thank you very much. Love this knife. So we will start just gently pulling this. Any luck will come right off, and it did. We'll just set this guy to the side. See the nice skin on there. Let's do the other side. Just give it very gently. See if this one pulls off nice and easily too. And it does. Didn't even have to cut into it, and set him aside as well. Popped out. This one as well. There we go. And then finally, we will do the breast. So we will cut down the middle. Middle of that breastbone. Still piping hot. Now we'll gently just carve down as close to that breastbone as we can. There's one. Let's do the other side here. Actually, I'm going to flip this around. I'm right-handed, so I get some better leverage. Cutting on down there. You can see the juices just coming out. I'll tell you, beer can chicken, or in my case, beer can less chicken, really just turns out juicy and moist and tender. Second only to spatchcock chicken, and you'll have to check out my video on the spatchcock chicken as well. I was a little skeptical of the spatchcock, but first time I did it, became a believer in it real quickly. And here's the second breast off. I will pick at this later and get some of this extra meat off. What you could do with this is throw it in some water and make some chicken stock out of it as well. But right now, you can see the nice skin on there. And as I said before, skin is my favorite part. Let me go ahead and just continue carving up, cutting out the leg and the breast. I'm sorry, the leg and the thigh. Separate those. Put that to the side. This guy here. Separate those. Have the wings here. And finally, this one just pulls right apart. So really, I had minimal use of the carving knife, which is always a good sign. Didn't have to struggle too badly. Now, as far as the big piece here, this breast, I'm going to take the skin off and dive into that for sure. I'll just take my other carving knife, slicing knife. I'm going to cut on the double bias. Remember, on the bias, 45-degree angle, double bias, another 45 degrees. You want to cut against the grain, and we'll just make nice slices the whole way down. Remember, we took this to 165 degrees internal temperature. I had a probe in both the breast and the thigh. So we got both of those to 165 degrees. And there it is. I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and I'll come back for some closing comments. Now, I did a little taste test off to the side. Had a whole bunch of skin, which was really good. Really happy with the skin, and had a bite of the actual chicken as well. Really pleased with it. You know, I don't do taste tests on camera because I can't offer you a bite to eat. So I just like to be polite and not eat in front of you. If you follow the technique that I showed you in today's video, I believe that you'll find that the taste, the tenderness, and the texture are going to turn out just as well as it turned out for me today. And then you can do your own taste test to see if you really got the juiciness and tenderness and moistness that comes with doing a beer can chicken, or in this case, a beer can-less chicken. You can use a can of beer, you can use a can of soda, but it all turns out the same, in my opinion. I am, like I said, not going to do the taste test on camera, but I am going to give this the Grill Father Johnny L stamp of approval. Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by the channel today. I hope you found this video useful and helpful. Would you do me the favor of hitting the like and subscribe buttons, as well as taking a moment to share this video with a family member or friend? Till next time, this is Grill Father Johnny L. Take care, God bless, and smoke on.